And now, our feature presentation.
I like it spooky.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the I Like It Spooky Horror Podcast. I'm Brian.
I am Clint, and although it doesn't affect the episode release outcome, thank God our normal recording time was delayed again. You can hear my voice. It's still recovering from halfway to Halloween. A couple days ago, I could barely even talk. And I mean, how would I be able to tell everybody about monster trucks later on?
If you couldn't talk, you wouldn't be. You'd have to just make grunts or vroom vroom sounds.
Yeah, because since we're not like a video podcast format, we couldn't have the sign language interpreter. So it'd just be me scowling and grunting.
I wonder what sign language for monster truck is.
I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Until, let's get to some other news.
So my first bit of news is sad news from the alligator world. Morris the alligator from Alligator dies of old age.
It lives 50 feet beneath the streets. It's 36 feet long. It weighs over 2,000 pounds.
And Morris lived to be 80 years old, possibly even 100. They weren't really sure. He was in the 1980 horror film Alligator. He was the star of the movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, the movie was named after him. So, well, not called Morris.
But yeah, his handler, Jay Young, made an announcement in the video. I haven't watched the clip, but it sounds like it's heartbreaking. I mean, he's had this animal and worked with this animal for probably the majority of his life. But it sounds like Morris lived a great life, and he had other movies. He was in Alligator 2, Interview with a Vampire, The Blues Brothers, 2000, Happy Gilmore. He also appeared on shows like Jay Leno, Coach, and one of your favorites, Night Court.
Night Court. Yeah, I know which episode you're talking about, too. That's insane. When I saw the article, it just hit me. I'm like, I didn't even realize how long alligators lived. I never even gave a second thought to it. But Brian, that's amazing. I had no idea that it was the same alligator that played those are some amazing movies and moments in media. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and there was a couple other movies on there that I didn't list, but a star. Maybe Morris will get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
He should. But, you brought up the Night Court thing, and I'm wondering, there might be a crossover there because the movie Alligator took place in New York. And, of course, Night Court took place in New York. And I remember that episode, and I think there was it was one of the hurricanes, like a big storm hit, and Bull goes out and saves all these animals. And, of course, he winds up putting the alligator in Harry's office. Maybe it was the same character.
So in the year 2055, when we are 70 years old and you finally slow down, we will have you on the wrong podcast to talk about Night Court. Right?
I don't think I'm going to live that long, but yeah, I can't wait, man. I thought we were doing that earlier this year, and it kept getting pushed off, and I get it.
And then my other news is Godzilla versus Kong, or they have that X in the middle. Supernova set for 2027. And there's a super short teaser trailer that's been put out, and it doesn't give you a lot. It gives you a little, but I want to see it. And everybody's, clamoring, is it Space Godzilla? Is it this monster? Is it this monster? Is it that? No one really knows. You can watch the trailer and pull out Easter eggs all you want, but unless you're part of that, you don't know right now at this point. And I'm just excited for more Godzilla and Kong. I almost, in these films, enjoy Kong more just because, and I don't know if you've seen the newest one, where Kong fights the little baby and he picks it up and hits the other monkeys with it.
Well, that's why you like it. It involves baby punching. No, I was getting ready to say I wouldn't have been able to pick out anything. I would have called you and been like, what the fuck does this all mean? I have no clue. So,
and I've watched a couple videos on it, but I'm kind of want to be surprised. I just kind of want to go into it and be surprised and have fun with it. And that's what these are. These aren't your classic Godzilla or your Godzilla -1 or your Shin Godzilla where it's serious. These films are just fun.
Speaking of King Kong, I've seen over the past couple of days that Stern Pinball, it has or is putting out a King Kong pinball machine. In fact, I think I tagged you in. Anytime I see anything Godzilla or King Kong, I tag you and I tag Brian Clark. And I remember recently I tagged you guys like they're coming out with some soap. It was you or Brian that was like, it was Brian or Brian that said, what are you trying to say? I'm stinky or something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of it is anymore we're getting to that area where if you see something Godzilla, if you see something Friday the 13th, it looks cool, but it's almost always AI generated. You know, there was some Godzilla ice things that make like a Godzilla shaped ice, and once you look into it, it's AI generated. So you're like, these are just people trying to scam people out of stuff.
So the soap's not legitimate?
Oh, the soap is legitimate, but I think there was like a whiskey that somebody shared and that wasn't legitimate.
Oh, see, I didn't know that because there was like a Michael Myers. I shared that to you because there's a Godzilla one also. That's sad. It is really hard to tell. I know something that is legitimate, and the reason I know it's legitimate is because it's a story from bloodydisgusting.com, and I trust bloodydisgusting.com. So this is, I went back a little bit in our shared news thread. This is from April 7th, this article. Shudder greenlights Guts and Glory, which is a horror competition series from Greg Nicotero. It says Shudder is rejoining forces with Creepshow series creator Greg Nicotero, releasing to their streaming service this immersive horror competition series. Guts and Glory is set to debut later this year on both Shudder and AMC. It says the 6-episode series flips the script on the traditional competition show, thrusting players into an immersive horror experience full of unexpected challenges.
There's a lot of stuff coming horror-wise on TV and at theaters. I think that we talked about this a couple episodes ago. We're kind of in this resurgence of horror. We have that show, is it Scare Factor?
That I almost reported on that too. Scare Factor is coming back. And we talked, I don't remember what episode. It was earlier this year that Scare Tactics is coming back. The show that was hosted by Tracy, what was Tracy's, the comedian Tracy?
Tracy Morgan. It's not as good as the original. I don't feel like they let it go as long. They kind of cut it off before people get too scared. But if people got too scared, they'd probably sue the show. So they have to, cut it off before it gets too scary and people get punched.
Like babies from Brian. What's interesting, I'm super excited to see this show is because, Brian, guess what? For this news story, I have a story.
Oh, let's hear it.
So this was years ago. It's something that never came to be, but I got super, super close. I was actually sitting in this chair in this room when this happened, but a while back, Bruce Campbell, he teamed up with the guys who put on, I forget the name of it. It was like The Last Geek Standing or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? And it was like a pop culture elimination show. They teamed up with Bruce and they were going to put together a horror version of that. And what was going to happen was it was going to be, 6, 7 contestants or whatever. Because I was going to be a part of this, we were going to live in a haunted house. It was a set build. And then each week or whatever, your trivia would be challenged and you would have to go through physical challenges. And it was an elimination show. And I came across a casting call for it. And I say I got the part because it went beyond the initial audition and it got to the point to where it kept getting stretched out. And I was actually having like follow-up conversations with the casting director. They didn't say, Clint, you have this part. But they were getting back to me, letting me know what was going on. Casting directors don't do that. One of the things I thought was interesting about it was they asked me a lot of questions, like personal questions. At the time I was married, both my kids were still little, and I was talking a lot about just things like that. I go to Girl Scouts and take the kids to the beach and go to the zoo and all that. And so it was almost like they were going to cast me as like the family man. That's kind of what was happening. So unfortunately, the show never came to be. We never got to see it happen. And if I ever meet Bruce, I want to talk to him about it.
Well, and that sounds like they were vetting you. They were asking you things about your life to make sure that you were on the up and up, before they checked see if you got a prison record or any of that stuff. They have to make sure you're not a serial killer before they invite you on the show.
They probably thought I was a serial killer because to make this story go on even longer. So for the, I I applied, and then there was, some emailing back and forth. But then we had a video audition, and it was like my first time ever dealing with Skype or like you and I are doing right now. We're looking at each other while we're recording. I was super nervous, but I did this whole thing. So I took a bunch of props from the haunt and I set them all up around the room, and I lit the room. And I had one of my actors at the time who, Kevin wasn't a midget, but I don't know if you call him a little he was like a tall midget. He was a very tall little person, but he was like, I don't know, maybe 4 foot, and he was a grown man. So the thing starts, and Kevin's sitting in the chair, and, the casting director or whatever, starts and introduces himself, and Kevin's just sitting there going all quiet and looking around the room and shaking back and forth and nervous. And he's just like, hi, the casting, I'm off to the corner watching, and it goes back and forth. It's very awkward. And you can see the casting director like, what the fuck is going on? All of a sudden, I come in the room with this prop hammer that I made, this foam prop hammer, soaked it in blood, and start bashing Kevin in the head and yelling at him and drag him out of the room and throw him in a cage. And the guy is like, what in the fuck? I just made this huge spectacle of it, and I think it worked because it got me to stages beyond that. Of course, I don't know why they thought I was a family man or not a serial killer after watching me bash a midget in the head with a bloody hammer.
And it sounds like anytime I hear Bruce talk about stuff that didn't happen, it's always somebody wasn't getting a big enough piece of the pie. This person wanted more money. He talks about Ash versus Jason versus Freddy, and it was this person wanted more money, or Ash couldn't defeat Jason or Freddy because that's their money maker. You can't have Jason die because how would we make more movies? How would we make more Freddys if Freddy dies? And I was thinking, they die every fucking movie. You just bring them back like you always do.
Exactly.
It pretty much boiled down to, because Freddy's one company and, Ash is a different and Jason's a different, and they're all fighting over 2 pennies that are laying on the ground because you're getting 2 cents more than me.
Just freaking greed, And I mean, we don't even know what that is because we don't even have enough money to be greedy. Because I don't know if you know this, Brian. I'm sure our listeners do. They probably know what I'm getting ready to say right now. We're poor.
So I have a ton of stuff. Some of it I've paid for. Some of it was gifts. And I know you have a box of stuff from our friends at Mad Ghoul Radio. And I opened my box, but you haven't had time. So I'll save that for an unboxing after you have time to open yours.
That was the only thing I had to talk about. I do know of a couple things that are in there.
One thing I want to share, and you could go, I was going to tease this and tell people to go to our YouTube channel and watch the video. You still can because you'll want to see this. But I was lucky enough to see Fabio Frizzi. He's an Italian composer. And if you're a horror movie fan, you type his name in, you're going to know his movies. I was lucky enough to go with some friends and see him in concert. They played the film Zombie. And then after the show, he played several songs. It was about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2.5 hours show at the Capitol Theater in Davenport, Iowa. And after the show, we're standing at the merch table. And my buddy Ian Higby has these 2 records, 2 45s of Fabio Frizzi, not horror films. And I think the one was called Anti-May, and it's an Italian film. And there's a song on there that he loves. He adores this song. And at the end, a female voice speaks French on the song, and he's wanted to know for 20 years, who the fuck was this? And my buddy Kyle is going to buy a poster. He gets up, and Ian says to the lady, does he ever come out after the shows? Does Fabio ever come out after the shows? And she said, well, he had a VIP meet and greet, and I think they're eating. Why do you ask? And he says, well, I've had this question for a long time. And Kyle pipes up and says, he's had this question for 20 fucking years. I'm sick of hearing about it. And I pipe up and said, I rode in the car for 45 minutes with him, and I feel like I've wanted to know the answer to this for 20 fucking years. So the lady says, what was your question? Shows her the record and says, let me take a picture of it and I'll send it to him. So she sends it. A couple minutes go by. She doesn't hear anything. She says, let me go to the back because now I want to know the answer to this fucking question.
It's infecting everybody.
So she goes to the back. She comes back and says, if I remember her wording right, I know the answer, but I'm not telling you guys, but just hang out for a little bit. Just hang out.
So he knew at that point that he was going to come out probably.
Well, and he said, is he coming out? And she's like, just relax, hang out. So we wait a couple minutes. Here comes Fabio Frizzi. He's a tall, white-haired gentleman. He's in his 70s. He says, ciao, ciao, and he's shaking everybody's hand, shakes my hand, shakes Ian's hand, and he knows the question. and he knows the answer. So he answers the question. It was a friend of his. He said a tall, beautiful young lady, and she didn't speak French, so I had to kind of coach her through it because he speaks Spanish, French, Italian, American, and probably other languages. So he answers the question, and he says, "Can I sign those for you?" To my buddy Ian. Of course, you're going to let him sign your records. And then Kyle had bought a poster, and he said, "Do you want me to sign your poster?" Well, of course, you're going to allow Fabio Frizzi to sign your poster. And he says, "Anybody else?" And I had, just on a whim, taken my Fabio Frizzi live at the drive-in record with me. And I said, "Would you sign my record?" And I slide it over to him, and he kind of looks at it, and he goes, hands up in there, "Oh, Joe Bob. Oh, I love Joe Bob. We had so much fun on Joe Bob. Oh, I love it." And he signs it, and the lady working the merch table says, "Do you mind if I send a picture of that to the band and see if any of them want to come out and sign it?" I'm like, no.
You're like, "I've died and gone to heaven. This is an amazing story."
I could not even have told you that this was his band. I never paid attention to the front of it and looked at who these people were. And this was 2 years ago he was on the show. And who knows when it was recorded, it's all the same people in his band.
Oh, wow.
From 2 to 3 years ago. So, of course, one person comes out, one guy, and then they slowly trickle out. And the cool thing is, there's one person that's kind of in a shadow on here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but he's kind of shadowed out.
I see that, yeah.
He wasn't there, or he wasn't in the picture that night when they took the picture, so they had to superimpose him. I have the record now, and it's signed by Fabio Frizzi and his whole band. And I thought, well, I have this one signed. I kind of want to frame it, so I'll just go online and buy another one. No, I won't. The only one on eBay is the record with a slip mat for $150, and none have sold.
Is that or best offer? Can you wheel and deal?
I didn't even pay attention. I was just like, $150. I ain't even, it's just a record. I'm not even going to bother with it. But now it's got all those autographs on it, so it's worth at least a little bit more.
This is where you employ hashtag save the box. You employ the cult of Clint. Frame that fucking thing. Put it on the wall. Whenever you want to listen to the music, just go to YouTube.
And he starts singing the song that my friend had the question about. And I grabbed Fabio Frizzi on the shoulder and I said, "Ian, you need to sing too. This sounds like a duet."
Part. Sing the French lady part.
He just laughed. The whole band came out and talked to us. Just a fun night. I think they could tell we were fans and we were genuine. He enjoyed that somebody realized another part of his discography outside of the Fulci stuff, because he's done hundreds of things. This is just what gets people in seats and gets people to come and check out his show. So I would imagine that's what he does. But he's done so many other things and just all super nice people, made time for us. And I didn't get home till almost 1:00 that night and had to work the next morning, but it was so worth it.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great story, Brian. And you're right. We talked about that before, that, when you go and meet a celebrity, granted, you're going to go meet him because Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger. But that's the one I bring up as an example, because I always said if I ever meet him, I'm going to be like, "Hey, let's talk about that episode of Night Court you were on, or your role in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane with Andrew Dice Clay," and I think a lot of these celebrities would appreciate talking about other things, just like you're saying he did. So, man, that is so cool.
Of course, our buddy Justin Beam sent me a care package. Just freaking, I bought 2 more of his books just to give as gifts.
Well, here, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. So all this care package talk has me. I'm going to go grab mine. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with Brian, minus my interruptions. I'll be back in a minute. Take it away, Brian.
My buddy Justin Beam sent me a care package. And I had ordered 2 of his books to gift to people. It's just a great book. And I gifted one to Tiffany's mom, and she loved it. So one of the things I got from Arrow Video was The Warriors, and it's a beautiful box set of The Warriors from Arrow Video. I need to open that. But then just a ton of magazines. Iowa History Journal. Julie Andrews, From Waterloo to the Black Lagoon. Didn't even know she was from Waterloo. Horror Hound number 53 with a 40th anniversary Jaws retrospective. That's from June of 2015. Diabolic from April of 2017. with a bunch of Japanese stuff in it. Diabolic from 2012, issue number 13, the Christmas issue. Full Moon's Delirium, a Fangoria that's still sealed. And this is all going to make it to Let's Get Physical eventually, because not only are movies and records physical media, but to me, magazines, books, it's all physical media. It's all in your hand, keeping history alive.
Well, and another thing, when we get gifts like this, especially for me in times when I'm poor and can't afford to go grab stuff for the collection or just fun stuff like this, everybody who helps, gift thing, it gives us stuff for the show. So thank you,
Yeah, and I think Justin's just super supportive, and I've tried to always be supportive of him and buy his books and buy his movies, and he's amazing at what he does. I'm just lucky to have him as a friend. One other thing that was stuck in there was a Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers. I think that's a slipcover from the movie, and it's signed by Alan Howarth and Michael Jacob.
And another cool thing about that is, we've talked before that we are collectors and not necessarily resellers. I do kind of approach things through the lens of resale in case I look at the collection as a piggy bank. But that's cool to get those things for free, especially since people know that we're not going to turn around and thank you and then sell it on eBay. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think one of the things that we do, and especially the horror community does as a whole, I mean, there are some bad eggs just like with everything, but we try to support each other. I mean, we've donated to Cinema Stomp that's going on in Mason City, Iowa. And I made a commercial for them and sent it to them, and they loved it. I just threw it together in a couple days, just helping support them and get the word out about what they're doing up there in Mason City, Iowa. Just bringing people together to watch movies that we enjoy, and they're giving us shout outs. So hopefully we'll get some new listeners from that. But like with Justin or Rob, we're just trying to push people up.
And not that we do that to get things, but in turn, we wind up with some cool stuff. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with your goodies there?
No.
So 3 of these things I knew about, and the other ones I knew about. But so again, I got care package. I didn't think, when I think care package, I think it's because I'm sick. Maybe this is a care package because I'm poor. So yeah, I got a box from Rob as well, and included, we've got some audio CDs here, and I swear I have one of these. Maybe I wonder if he sent me, but it's the Deepest Cuts Volume 1, which is a original motion picture soundtracks. He's got some stuff taped to the back of it too. And then there's Deepest Cuts Volume 2, Deepest Cuts Volume 3. So this is all, and he sent a track list also. So things, because there are a lot of this time, you'll hear something and you'll be like, oh, that's cool. And then, oh my God, I didn't know that was from my favorite movie from 1980, whatever, So I definitely will be listening to these. And, I know we've been talking a lot about Rob because he's just been getting his show, Mad Ghoul Radio, going off the ground. But if you want to hear some cool stuff like he sent Brian and I, then Mad Ghoul Radio once a week on the PFPN. Play some cool shit like this. In addition, he sent me a Blu-ray of Feaster Sunday, which I told him that I think he's already given me one of these, but I didn't have a chance to go look. So I might have 2. This is a movie that, what did Rob, he had something to do with this. I don't think he wasn't in it. I think he was an executive producer. But what's interesting about the Feaster Sunday is one of the actors in that is the guy who was in the movie that we covered with Leah Stalker from Pure Macabre on Indie Spotlight a few episodes back, Chubbies. And so he sent me a copy of Chubbies as well. So, haha, Leah, I have a Blu-ray of Chubbies. Oh, and Brian, so when I was at halfway to Halloween, I almost did it, but I had so much going on at once. I learned that I'm used to vending. I was vending and talking with the crowd and working with connections. And, we had the haunt set up for Haunting in the Hills. So I had no idea where to be at any given time. It was a very overwhelming day. But Rebecca and I did get over to the vendor area for a little bit to see some friends and just do some browsing. I almost bought this, but I was just in a haze. And then afterwards, I got into an impromptu flash mob chainsaw battle in the crowd right after this. There was a vendor that had the Boglins and the exact one that was used. Well, not the exact one that was used in Chubby, but the same style of one that was used in Chubby, so I almost bought it. And then last but not least, Rob sent me Stop the Killer Games. I don't know if you got one of these. You might be upset because I know this is your thing, of Basket Case. I remember he said we were talking, he said that somehow he wound up with 2 of them. And he says, you have this? And I said, no, I got Silent Night, Deadly Night, and I've got 2 My Bloody Valentines. So he sent this. Very cool. So thank you, Rob, because lately I haven't been able to have shit for the collection. So it's like Christmas right now.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff in my care package. And I was actually talking to him tonight before we recorded, and he said, I threw some pamphlets in there of, places around where I live that you might want to check out if you ever come to visit. I said, well, that'd be cool. He said, I didn't put them in Clint's box just because I don't want him to come visit. I don't want him to know where I live. And I said, well, doesn't Rebecca know where you live? And he's like, she might, but she's never been here.
Maybe that's probably why he doesn't want me to come, because he knows I'm bringing his sister.
Nothing against you. He just doesn't want her to come. I handed him to Tiffany and I said, this looks like a fun place. And she said, why don't you see if we can get you a job? We can move out of Illinois.
I've heard them say that it's beautiful up there.
He sent me a picture of his front yard and it's overlooking a pond, it looks like. And I sent him a picture of my backyard and it's overlooking 2 dogs, a 6-year-old in a swimming suit, and a Walmart plastic pond. Or, the blue pool from Walmart.
Hey, a body of water is a body of water, man.
I said, we're living 2 different lives, buddy.
Well, it sounds to me like actually maybe this episode, we need to get Brian a sponsor.
For more plastic pools from Walmart.
For a bigger pool. And a shovel so you can dig it in the ground and make it look like an actual pond.
Who is mad enough to enter the world of cinema stomp? Something is alive in Mason City, Iowa. Something better off dead. Something that has the form of a human, but not the face. Something that feeds off the flesh and blood of the innocent. Something that tonight will turn Mason City into a cinema of terror. Cinema Stomp, Mason City, Iowa. Follow Cinema Stomp on Facebook for details on coming events, if you dare.
So now that we've heard from our sponsor, it's time for our movie. We're talking about the 1989 horror comedy Shot on Video. Was this shot on video? I didn't see that anywhere, but
I don't think it is. That was our intention, and then I took us a step up from that.
I don't know. I've seen some shot on video, but it kind of looks like it was, or maybe an early trauma film.
There's some trauma tie-ins.
Hour and 30 minutes, short and sweet. It's called Flesh Eating Mothers.
Welcome to a typical American town with good solid values. The kids go to school. The fathers have good jobs.
Anybody home?
Billy! And the mothers eat their children.
So in a stark contrast from the last episode where we covered the Masterpiece Centers, I decided that I'd try to take us back to mine, and I'm pretty sure Brian's, our USA Up All Night roots with this one. But the first thing I got to say about this movie, other than the title, has always been amazing. Justice for the Alley Cat. It's another fucking movie where a cat dies viciously.
Is it just, at this point, is it dumb luck, or is it just the universe working against us or with us, or I'm not even sure anymore.
It's the podcast gods, and they're like, sooner or later these guys are going to run out of shit to talk about, so I'm just going to throw them a bone and give them reoccurring themes, because I've seen this movie, I don't know, half dozen times throughout my life, and I didn't remember the cat, but when I watched it as a refresher for this, I'm like, holy shit, it's another dead cat.
We will eventually have to write a book about all the horror movies that have cat deaths in them.
Well, now I know why when my cat sees me, it literally runs the other way.
Erica, who's a friend of our podcast network, the PFPN, wrote a book about child murders in movies. So if they've got child murders and kids covered, someone needs to do cats, right? And there's probably one for dogs. The only problem is people are more upset when animals die than they are when kids die. For the most part, well, I don't know about than kids, but yeah, than people for sure. So, but leave it to us. We're the ones who would write the book about the dead cats and be like, in Flesh-Eating Mothers, a cat was ripped apart in the alleyway and feasted upon by 2 toothy moms, That was one of the questions I had. Why do they mutate? But we could talk about that later. A synopsis for the film. A sexually transmitted virus causes an outbreak of cannibalism among the adulterous wives of suburban Baltimore. That's right, everybody. Stay loyal. Keep it in your pants or you're going to get eaten. There's not a lot if you go to the Internet Movie Database on this film. I did pull one thing that I thought was interesting, and it is this. A job on Splatter University, which, Brian, I'm sure you know of Splatter University, which was shot in 1981 by New York University students, led to the director to co-write I Was a Teenage Zombie, which I remember seeing in the video stores. I don't think I ever watched that one, which in turn led to raising $10,000 to get this film off the ground with the help of
his fellow NYU students or alumni. Sorry. So this is an East Coast flick, and there are people that were involved with this movie also were involved with Class of Newcomb High. It's all the same clique, the same circle. It very much has a trauma feel to it.
What was weird to me, though, is all the underlying family issues, the adultery, the abusive husband, the bad kids. It was like they were poking fun at it, but not fun enough, if that makes sense. It was a little too serious at times, that part of it. Not the movie, the mothers turning into zombies and their teeth being weird and some of the kids, but when the one mom is getting beaten by her husband on a regular basis, and the kid, the boy who's full grown, who could probably whip the dad's ass, just keeps saying, he won't do it again. We need to leave.
This movie played everything straight. Besides the quirky music, which I get to in a little bit, the only thing I feel that was deliberately comical about this movie is when the mothers had mutated into the more zombie-esque creatures and were walking about town, eating and trying to kill everything. And then we're like, oh no, I left the iron on. And just having like those stereotypical mother, what do you put in your casserole type conversations. To me, that was the only thing that was deliberately comical, again, but besides the quirky kind of library royalty-free music that was fit in. But yeah, you're right, Brian. Everything was played serious and straight, and it did deal with a lot of taboos. I think the only one you didn't bring up was the absent father, the one kid, Rinaldi, his dad was in prison.
I don't know. Looking back at watching it, this is a first time watch for me. It wasn't supposed to be comedy, but the name kind of lends it to being a comedy, maybe. You see the poster for it, and you're thinking, and maybe it's because we're both big 80s movie fans and horror fans, it just maybe come off as more of a comedy, kind of like Bloodhook. You ever seen that one?
No, but I know what you're talking about. I think what it is they shot this movie, and then they sat there and watched it. And it took a couple years in post-production to get this thing actually out.
2 years.
I think they looked at it, and I could be wrong, but I think they looked at it and they were like, okay, the acting wasn't good enough. The audio was too quirky. There's no way this is going to be a serious horror film, because the original title was just Mothers. And so I'm curious if they were like, all right, let's just put this out there as a horror comedy. Call it Flesh-Eating Mothers, you know what I mean? Showcase the lines about zombie mothers discussing casserole trade secrets. Because there's actually a lot of like deep, heavy shit in there.
It's almost a horror crime drama because you're trying to figure out who and what caused this. And that's a big part of the story with the coroner. He's trying to figure out what's the cover-up, what's really going on, and there is a cover-up.
Which is alluded to, but never really fully explained. I mean, it is, but it isn't. One thing is it had a fairly interesting hook that serves as kind of a half-assed backstory that you learn later on in the film. But I remember this being more gory than it was. And maybe that's because first time I saw it, I was 9 years old, 12 years old, on USA Up All Night. And I'm like, oh, wow. Because the title, Flesh-Eating Mothers, you're just like, ooh, this is nasty. But I will say that it did have a very fun, traditionally animated title sequence that I thought was cool. That was added in post-production a couple years later.
Yeah, I had read that online. It took 2 years to get the film through post-production, which is, I would imagine, unheard of. I know it had a low budget, but usually if you make something, you're done refilming it, you want to get it out.
I think even then the Amiga Toaster 2000s, that was the VHS editing software back then. That's what I learned on. And it was probably just either too new or, I don't know. They were burning it up, so it took forever.
Well, in the pre-credit scene at the beginning, it was a year after the movie was filmed. So like they'd finished principal filming of the movie and wrapped, and then a year later they did that pre-credit scene.
The entire one, because you have the animated where it's the title sequence, and then you've got the credit scene. Which one are you talking about?
I think it was the pre-credit scene. So the part, it must be where he shoots his wife.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they needed that to flush out the story more. I missed that kind of getting through the film, watching it for the first time. I think I kind of got lost in the idea of where's the gore. Was there nudity in this?
No.
Yeah. It's kind of, they're sleeping together or they just slept together, but no nudity. So another thing for a shot on video or 80s kind of B horror film to not have nudity in it is kind of an odd thing.
Well, it's probably because I'm assuming most of the mothers in this movie were actually probably like the cast and crew's mothers. There weren't too many professional actors. There was some star power, though. So Lois, who is the cop's drunk ex-wife. And she, I think, was the first one that we see turn, and then she gets shot in the head. Picked her up right now. I was like, she's from Goodfellas. She was one of the wives of one of kind of like the background gangsters in Goodfellas. Who went on to be a star was Valerie Hubbard, and she played Joyce Shepard. She was the blonde. I hate to say it like it, but she was shorter and kind of like she had a bigger forehead. She's the only one who seemed to go on to any sort of career. She's been in several non-horror mainstream projects, including Hannah Montana, How I Met Your Mother, but she was also in True Blood and Resident Evil Extinction, which I distinctly remember her part in that movie.
Did you see that the bulk of the cast was found through an ad in a Backstage magazine? That would imagine a trade magazine back in the 80s, where you would, if you were in a big city, an actor or actress in a big city, maybe New York, LA, Chicago, Baltimore, you would pick that up and look for jobs instead of going online.
Again, this is all kind of the same time and the same trauma crew. I'd actually have to go back to listen to when we interviewed Robert and Gary from Toxic Avenger and Class of Nukem High, but I'm pretty sure that's how Robert said that he came across this. He just saw an ad and showed up. I'm pretty sure. I think Gary knew somebody who knew somebody. I'd have to listen to it again.
How crazy that would be, just to be walking down the street in a bigger city and grab a magazine and go shoot for a movie that's being filmed.
And for this one, it said no acting experience required. Speaking of famous people, there was a list of famous people who had venereal disease in the clinic scene. That was pretty interesting.
The more I think about it, sitting here talking to you, there's a lot to this film. So what do I always say? It's like an onion. It's got layers.
So Flesh-Eating Mothers, I think, could very easily be dismissed as a stupid, poorly acted, terrible audio, you know what I mean? Stupid 80s horror flick. But no, I think for the budget they probably had, which I didn't find anything on the budget. You can tell by watching it that they, I think they were serious filmmakers trying to make a run at it. Unfortunately, I don't think anything really panned out for them. Again, there was only a few people who kind of went on to other things. As far as the movie itself, another thing that I thought was interesting, actually it was kind of gross. It was when the moms started to turn, and the brunette wife of the guy who was infecting everybody, she picks up her baby from the crib and she's getting ready to eat the baby. And you know what's going to happen, and you're just kind of, you feel icky. But what was kind of sick about it was, if you watch the scene, she's kind of like holding the baby close. I hope to God it was her baby. That might even make it worse. And she like starts to lick its ear, almost like a, you would to your spouse or whatever. And it was just very uncomfortable. And she did it a couple times. I knew what she was trying to do, but it just looked intimate. And I was like, fuck, that's fucked up.
Yeah, she kind of sucked on the ear more than anything. And that's what I felt. I was like, this is getting really weird. What are we watching here? But when that's the weirdest part of the movie for us,
then it's a fairly normal flick. Is that what you're trying to say?
Flesh-eating moms is fine. I mean, I don't care if moms all over the country want to eat their kids. That's less mouths to feed, right?
I tell you what.
Times are tough.
I've talked the past few episodes about the financial strain. Love my children. I'm not complaining about them. I'm glad that they're succeeding and trying things, and I'm able to help them. I'm blessed to be able to. But I know why lions eat their young. I'd have a lot more money if it wasn't for all this shit.
I think I've officially graduated from baby punching to baby eating.
My kids are officially professional wallet eaters is what they are. But
oh, definitely. I got a 6-year-old that does that.
All this sounds really odd, and what a great segue, because another odd thing, that's why I wrote it down, and I kind of just already said something about it, was the choice of what I assume was royalty-free library music. It was quirky, and it added kind of the 80s dark comedy sheen to the flick, but it was used in some really odd places a few times. Just when you're watching, like, this doesn't fit. It was kind of like that upbeat, almost elevator music while the one wife was getting beat by her husband, and it was like, this doesn't fit right here. So, and speaking of the audio, like I said, the quality, it was lacking pretty much throughout the whole flick. It was very in a tin can.
Yeah, I could see where this would fail when it first released, but slowly but surely goes to probably video, has a cool box cover. People start to watch it and think, this is pretty ape shit crazy. They tell a friend who tells a friend who tells a friend, and it builds that cult following.
This is very much a cult movie. I don't think it's hailed as a cult movie. I think this is even cult movies fans' dirty little secret. I remember a while back when I guested on Three Corners of Horror, and before I went on, they sent me a list. They're like, okay, this is what we're covering. Choose what you want to be on. And there was nothing that I was super super interested in from what they were covering. Nothing against them. I was just looking, I was like, But there was one with some question marks. And I said, hey, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but what's the question mark? So I was like, could I hop on there? Do you not know what to do? Let's do something zany like Flesh-Eating Mothers and shot down in flames. And they were like, no.
They're like, what? Never heard of it. I mean, it is online. I don't know where you watched it, but I watched it on Tubi. I saw it was on Plex and it was on Amazon Prime. The fun thing about Tubi is, though, after the movie was over, I went outside for a little bit and came back in and went to another movie. And then I went and ran a couple errands and came back and it was on a different movie. It just kept playing the same kinds of movies throughout the evening. I think I left it on, that afternoon until bedtime. And it just kept playing movies over and over. I thought, this is kind of fun. This is how TV would be back in the olden days. It would just go to the next thing.
For sure. And to your point, this was very much a video store and a huge late night cable television movie, which is why I think it's still around. But although this is one of those movies where I say even you go to even kind of old school horror fans and they're like, huh? One thing, because I've kind of knocked a few things about this film. One thing I enjoyed about it, though, I don't know if you did, was the mother's makeup. Once all of them turned, they had this like cross between like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, The Man Who Laughs, and like Jack Nicholson's The Joker. And it was fairly creepy. They did a good job there. I think some of the budget got spent on that.
Yeah, I just didn't understand why they mutated, if that makes sense. I mean, it's an STD. Why would their face? Maybe it's because they're cannibals. I don't know. But it happened relatively fast. This happened within, a couple day period, this whole movie. It just seemed odd to me that would be the choice. It was good. Like you said, it looked interesting, but wasn't sure why. I mean, when you think of Night of the Demons, how they their faces change a little bit, it's because they're possessed. You don't really know why. I mean, we've all known people with STDs. Their faces didn't change that I know of. No, we don't all know people with STDs.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, trying to think. I mean, hopefully not. No, it's funny. This came out about the same time as Night of the Demons. And so actually the look was kind of similar. It was almost like if you ordered Night of the Demons on Wish, but it was still creepy, but it was similar. And I mean, I don't know. You never really do get an explanation. I think it was kind of a loose part of the story. Basically, I just viewed it as, hey, you're getting punished. There's another highlight of this film for me, Brian, and I want to play the clip right now. It's when the moms are the two moms go to the the mother-daughter dinner at the school or whatever. They start eating people and chaos breaks out. The police chief, who's trying to keep this all under wraps, is riding in his car, and you hear the two cops, their banter back and forth about cannibals, what? Over the radio. It's just fucking hilarious.
That was another thing that was odd to me also, and I don't know if it was to stretch the movie out a little bit. All the kids, when they would see the mothers, would almost pause or scream or wait a minute to run off the screen. None of them would see it and then just go. They all had this kind of drawn out reaction to it, even as the film went on.
Yeah, I actually feel the movie was too long, and it was scenes like that. It's exactly scenes like that. And I think that's what made some of the stuff a little awkward. And when I get to the poorly acted, it's things like that. I say this a lot about movies, but if they just would have sliced a frame off here and there of stuff like that, I think it would have been more streamlined and a little more serious of a film. But come on, it's still fun as hell. The other thing that this is for certain, I don't understand this, and you got to agree. For some reason, in that community, in that film, after dark, the basketball courts are a very special place for that community. Everybody just randomly meets up at walking by the basketball courts. What's going on in the basketball courts?
Yeah, that's the hangout back and then. Maybe it's a suburban town, so they didn't allow skateboarders or bad kids like us that was smoking on the corner, tearing shit up. Everybody just had to go play basketball.
I grew up by the railroad tracks. That's where I was. Railroad tracks and cemeteries.
And we didn't see either of those things in this film.
No, just basketball courts and toothy moms.
The coroner's office a couple times. Lots of bedrooms. Yeah, the sheriff was spreading his seed around, infecting the women of Baltimore.
That wasn't the sheriff.
Oh, it was the police chief.
Well, that's what you find out is like it started because he cheated on his wife, but then you fast forward and it was like the completely different guy who I thought looked familiar, and I was trying to find what else he had been in, and I kept hitting a wall. So, but I know he's been in some other stuff as well. But
there's not a lot about this film online. I looked for several days to find stuff, and it'd be little snippets here and there, but nothing super long articles. And I try not to go on where, reviewed the film and watched the film to take stuff from out of what they've seen. I'm trying to do research on it. And
correct.
There's just not a lot.
No, it's almost like the film was a half step from being a Alan Smithy credit. Probably my biggest hang up on the film is we'll get to the ending. I don't want to ruin it in case you haven't seen it. I hope you go see it just based off the title. You fucking have to. It's kind of a rule. You have to watch Flesh-Eating Mothers at least once in your life. But the ending, I was just like, really? Like, you didn't learn from this? Like, why didn't they treat this? And things just kind of start again. So I thought that was a little hokey, but I feel it was a little too long. I feel it had terrible audio. Like I just said, the ending was kind of lame. But I am ready to rate this cult classic, gory, do I say masterpiece? No, I don't.
Because I thought we were getting a shot on video film. Learning that it's not shot on video, I was like, well, it kind of looked like it was. And it had the budget of a shot on video film, but it's not. So maybe that knocks it down a point or half a point for me. I don't know that I'd ever sit down and watch this by myself again. In a group of people, though, it would be a freaking blast. On a watch party, at a theater, I think it would be really fun. So I'm going to go, what you said 5's like middle of the road. You'd watch it again.
For me, if it's 5, I'll watch it again. If it's less than 5, chances are I'm not going to watch it again.
So maybe a 5.5, because I wouldn't watch it by myself again. I wouldn't turn it off if it was on TV and it was playing, but I would definitely watch it in a group of people. So maybe a 6. Maybe a 6 out of 10, bringing a knife to a cannibal fight. You remember the part where kid pulls the knife and he's like throwing it back and forth and the cannibal mom's trying to eat him. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Just stab her and run away. You messing around.
Yeah, there is some weird stuff in this movie, like when the brothers were fighting, just literally beating the shit out of each other. Time for dinner. Okay, Mom. They just stop. It's weird.
Well, the brothers just standing over punching him. And I'm like, who is he punching? It would be fun in a group. It would be fun at a theater. Yeah, just not my cup of tea.
Well, first of all, it's my mistake that we did not watch a shot on video, because I brought it up last episode. I was like, hey, because Sinners is just amazing. And I was like, hey, let's do the complete opposite. And I brought up Wood Chipper Massacre. And then my brain started going, and I think I said something else. And then I was like, ooh, let's do Flesh-Eating Mothers. I was just all over the place. So I thought it was shot on video. That's, I've seen it 5-6 times, and that's just how I remember it. I'm right there with you on the number. I would go 5 out of 10, but just based off the title alone, I know that if and when I show this at Haunting in the Hills, or if and when you were to show this, at the Capitol or some other place, or talk to the guy who runs Cinema Stomping and showing it up there, I know that the title alone will bring people in. So because of that, I'm going up to 6 as well. So it is 6 out of 10. Sweaty Pits Zombie Mom. Nothing fun about a woman getting beat by her drunk husband on top of that. But if you go watch that scene, she's got some sweaty ass pits, man. Like, I don't know if she was nervous or they did that scene over and over. The lights were hot. But Rebecca actually watches some. I was like, oh my God, look at her pits. They were just dripping. So 6 out of 10 to watch this film again. And that's about how many times I've seen it.
And this is the episode after our Mother's Day episode. So.
Yeah, I thought that as I'm watching all the moms. Maybe that's what it was, to subliminally put it in my head. Sinners came out on Mother's Day. And I was like, oh, Mother's Day. Let's do Flesh-Eating Mothers.
I don't know. I think it's not nearly as good as most of the shows on our podcast network, right?
I think it's better than a couple of them.
We won't name names, right?
No, I'll just leave people guessing, because I could be talking about
us.
Ours. Yeah.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from our podcast network, let's get some recommendations in.
anything that was on USA Up All Night from 1987 to 1989.
Remember they were supposed to be bringing that back? Rhonda Shear was going to do some kind of show on her YouTube channel. I haven't seen anything about that, though.
No, I haven't either. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, it looked like it was going to get launched, or maybe we were just hoping it was going to get launched on a specific, like a Shudder or an HBO Max or something.
Well, the first thing I'll recommend is if you enjoy Flesh-Eating Mothers and you're a physical media fan, you can go buy a copy on Blu-ray for $22.99 is what it was on sale for last time I looked, and it's from Vinegar Syndrome. They had a slipcover, but the slipcover sold out. I might actually own this film. I just didn't have time to go through my movies and see if it's in my collection. A couple other recommendations from 1988, Rabid Grannies.
I have not. I want to see it. I still haven't seen that.
I've seen that either. This is a film that played after Flesh-Eating Mothers. It's from 1992. Annie Lee's Meat Pies. And I walked in the room as she's grinding up meat of some sort. I would imagine it's supposed to be human. I was like, that's just fucking gross. And that's another thing about this film. Some of the grossest stuff isn't even the mom eating the baby, the mom eating any of the people. It's when they're eating food. It reminds me of that clip from The Substance where he's eating the shrimp.
I still haven't seen that movie either, but I know what you're talking about. They accentuate the sound effects, so it's just yeah, it's gross.
And you're like, oh, this is nasty. And then from 2021, The Sadness, because that's a sexually transmitted disease that turns people into cannibals too. I thought that's more recent. Maybe some of our listeners have seen that one.
I wonder if the filmmakers of The Sadness were watching, they grew up on Flesh-Eating Mothers, and they were like, I want to take us a step further. And then when the sexually transmitted disease gets transmitted, then he's going to rip her eyeball out and skull fuck her, because that's what he does in the movie.
You don't see it, which is probably the saddest part of The Sadness. Because, I mean, if you're going to go that far, I want to see the damn thing, right? I mean, if you're going to tell me you're going to do it, just do it. Yes, I'm that gross. If we're going to do this, let's do it.
And Rob wanted to let you know where he lives, but not me?
Not you, yeah.
The fuck?
Well, and that would make sense because I think The Sadness is a Korean film. So they're getting these films from the 80s, maybe in the 90s or 2000s, and they're growing up on them and growing up to make movies like The Sadness.
Kind of like in Karate Kid Part 2 when they were in Okinawa and it was 1985, but the culture was stuck in like Elvis days. Mm-hmm. So right now, if you go to Korea, you're saying that it's 1988 Americana.
Let's go. Fuck this place. Let's go to Korea. Live through the 80s, yeah.
Take me back home.
So that's what I had for recommendations. I don't know if you have any others. There's some fun cannibal family movies. Not family movies, but you know what I mean.
Cannibals that eat their families. No, you could list off a whole bunch of, even if you want to take a more serious turn and get into The Hills Have Eyes or something like that. No, to keep in vein with this, I think you had some great recommendations there, and I forgot all about Rabid Grannies that I want to see.
You know, the sad part about all of it is we're almost old enough where Flesh-Eating Mothers and Rabid Grannies is right in our dating wheelhouse.
Our dating wheelhouse?
Yeah, that's kind of where we would date if we were single. We could go with Flesh-Eating Mothers or Rabid Grannies. Which way you want to go?
Oh, I got you now. Okay. I was like, this wasn't even a planned setup. I was seriously going to like, what the fuck is going on? What are you talking about?
A date which will live in infamy.
It's not time for what the fuck is going on. It's time for horror history. But Clint's really tired. He's been busting his ass.
And that was a great segue. You could not jump on that segue.
So May 25th through June 7th. And in 1922, on May 27th, Sir Christopher Frank, Lee is born. And I read this.
Why did you,
I read this like 5 times the other day. I was like, who the fuck is Christopher Frank Lee? Oh, it's Christopher Lee, English actor and singer. Career spanning more than 60 years. Came known as an actor with a deep, commanding voice who often portrayed villains in horror and franchise films. It's Christopher Lee. He's got a weird middle name, or he's got 4 names. I don't know how to even pronounce that, but I thought that's Christopher Lee. I'm an idiot.
I can't believe that you've stumbled through that one. But I learned something new. I never knew he was a singer.
1981, you get The Monster Club, which I believe Christopher Lee was in, right?
Yeah, that was him and Cushing, I believe. Peter Cushing was in that as well. I think Peter Lorre was in that too.
Well, and Donald Pleasance was in it, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, some really big horror royalty, especially in Britain. In 1988, you get Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And in 2006, you get Pan's Labyrinth, which was a Spanish Civil War film written and directed by Guillermo del Toro. And it debuted at Cannes on that day. I don't know if you've ever seen Pan's Labyrinth. It's more of a science fiction, but it's kind of a hard watch because it's taking place, during wartime.
No, I haven't seen it. I know about it. I mean, I know there's some NECA figures for it. You brought up Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I almost covered this for the news, but I don't know if there's a remake or a reboot coming or something, but I saw something reported about Killer Clowns from Outer Space written by, and it was like, God, I'd have to go look at the art, like Jake Gyllenhaal or something, like someone you'd be like, huh, who, why?
Well, I think it's interesting that you see these famous actors or actresses and you'll get a sprinkling of how much they love horror and how important it is to them. When did that become a thing? And this just kind of pops up and then it kind of fades away. But I think it's a bigger part of their lives than we would know about.
Because they don't have a podcast talking about horror shit. They're too busy making their mainstream bubblegum bullshit. By they, I mean them, and you know who you are. Go ahead.
On June 1st, Invasion of the Bee Girls in 1973. No idea what that is, but it sounds fun.
It does sound fun. 1973, that's the year of my hearse. Good year.
In 1990, you get Frankenhooker.
Want a date? Going out? Looking for some action? Need some company?
No, wait, huh? It's Jeffrey.
Got any money?
Money? No, I don't have any money.
In 1994, you get the FX channel. The cable channel debuted, and it had quite a few horror films, a lot of stuff that was maybe like Hellboy that came out, and X-Files, and almost a USA Up All Night feel later at night on that channel.
FX for probably 2 decades. It was a very boundary pushing network. And then, just the times caught up to it. Kind of created its own monster probably because all of a sudden they weren't taboo anymore because everybody showed everything.
It kind of transformed into showing Futurama and Family Guy and Archer, which are great shows, but they're animated. And then went to Ted. And at the time you were talking about it, I remember it showing like The Lawnmower Man and Jacob's Ladder, and there's a film FX, stuff like that. It was pushing boundaries on what it would show.
Well, and what I remember early FX, there was Married with Children, The Simpsons, back when you couldn't wear a Bart Simpson shirt at Cedar Point. Yes, if there are kids listening to this show, you used to not be able to wear a Bart Simpson shirt that said "Eat my shorts, man." At Cedar Point, they would ask you to take it off or turn it around because it was offensive.
And then in 2004, you get Satan's Schoolgirls. I think I've seen that, or I know of that.
2004? That had to have been a remake. Oh, no, I'm thinking of Satan's Cheerleaders. Sorry.
Hell, Satan's got all people from all walks of life. Haven't you figured that out yet? And then on June 7th, you get Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead in 1991. And then the original Purge in 2013, which I don't think I've ever seen any of the Purge movies, if I remember right.
I've seen the first one, and I enjoyed it. And then it kind of turned into the Saw franchise where they just kept putting spin-off after sequel after blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, they just kind of became money grabs. How much gore can we throw in this, and who can we kill, and how can we make this story goofier?
Can we use my sweet segue from earlier into what the fuck's going on now?
Just replay it?
Yeah, just like...
Yeah.
Rewind it and then put it back in.
Works for me.
Sweet. This wasn't even a planned setup. I was seriously going to what the fuck is going on? What are you talking about?
Hell, I don't know if I have anything going on. I'm sure I have stuff going on, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. What says May through June? I mean, we're just getting ready to go to South Dakota, but isn't horror related unless I find some cool cryptids or some stuff up there while I'm up there. Is there any serial killers from South Dakota?
I'll have to look. Probably. There's someone from everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, I need to get to the movies a couple times. I think I'm going to go see Final Destination, the new one. Hell, I don't know what else is even coming out.
Scooby-Doo, the Minor 49er. Did that take place in South Dakota? Probably not, but it sounds about right.
I don't even know where most of the Scooby-Doos took place. I mean, there's some horror conventions coming up. Carolina Fear Fest, that comes out on the 25th, or comes out. It starts on the 23rd and runs through the 25th in Raleigh, North Carolina.
I've always wanted to make it to that one and just never have.
Texas Frightmare Weekend is May 23rd through the 25th, and that's one of the big ones, and that's in Irving, Texas.
So I'm going to tell you something. Not that it's not big, because I've never been, but our buddy Chuck Ryan, who we haven't talked about in a while, he went, this was a year or two ago, and I was discussing with him maybe going out there and stuff like that. He had never been before. So I was like, tell me how it is, because that's like a 16-hour travel time for me. And he said, Clint, he says, and this was his opinion. I'm sure there are others out there, but he said it was a great show. He enjoyed his time there. He said, but in his opinion, it wasn't worth a 16-hour drive. And basically kind of our discussion back and forth we came up with, it's probably no different or no better or bigger than, say, Flashback or Horror Hound or Scare Fest. It's just the one in Texas. So it made me think of like like The Walking Dead or any zombie movie. You know, if you live in the East Coast, you hear the West Coast is zombie free, and the West Coast hears that the East Coast is zombie free. So it's all kind of the same stuff. It's a grand con, but you can go to one closer and get the same experience.
Yeah, because at that same weekend, or the next weekend, is Monster Palooza in Pasadena, California. That's May 30th through June 1st.
Which is another big one.
June 6th through the 8th, the Monroeville Mall is Living Dead Weekend, Monroeville 2025.
Quite possibly the last Living Dead weekend at the Monroeville Mall. Go to change.org. Go to our Facebook page, the I Like a Spooky Horror Podcast Facebook page. Scroll down a little bit. A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I shared the link to sign that petition to try to save the Monroeville Mall.
And then the Midwest Haunters Convention is June 6th through the 8th at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. So that would be right across from where Flashback is every year.
Yeah, and Midwest is not exactly, but a quick way to kind of explain it is it's almost like a Transworld Junior-ish.
And that one's in St. Louis, right? Transworld.
Correct. That's the Mecca. That's the big boy.
I know our friend Brent's been down there a couple times to Transworld, I believe.
Yeah. There's a couple big ones near Florida, too. I think at Fear Expo. I know Chris Krupe from Decompositions, who made the two big 12-foot skeletons, my inner guardians out there at Haunting in the Hills, and some other stuff he's made that people will get to see this year when they come to the haunt, has been to that one. So I've heard good things about that as well.
Yeah, and I think you have just as many events going on as I just listed up at Haunting in the Hills this year. I feel like every time I look at your page for the haunt, there's something new posted.
You know, I don't have anything going on for August, so if someone gets a hold of me. I'm not going to plug it all because I don't want to just bore everybody every episode. We are going to, again, you're going to hear me talk about it again. And, you know, it's the only way to get people to show up anymore is you got to just over and over and over and remind people. You know, I think that 8-second attention span has gone to like a 3.5 second attention span. But one thing I talked about at the beginning of this show is I said I'm glad that my voice has rested a little bit so I can talk about monster trucks. Now, I am totally and completely jumping the fucking gun on this one. I've tried not to do it, but in this one I'm going to. Of course, we've got Maximum Overdrive June 21st. We've got Carnival Metal Fest September 6th. See, there's so many shows, I don't remember the dates that are not in front of me. But we recently announced the addition of Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster. He's going to be stopping by Haunting in the Hills Thursday, July 10th. And we're still kind of formulating what that evening is going to look like. One of my visions pretty much early on, I'm almost certain is going to happen, is what we're going to do. We have a mid to late 90s hearse that we don't want. We're going to get rid of. We're going to sell it. We're going to crush it, whatever. I got the idea, hey, let's smash on this thing. Butch is going to be there. We're going to, probably watch Munsters Go Home or something. He's going to have Dragula. He's going to have the Munsters bike. He'll be signing autographs, taking pictures, looking around the place. And we're going to try to rustle up just some cool rat rods and specialty cars and maybe some more hearses. Anybody listening has a Scooby-Doo van, a unique vehicle. There's a banana car that drives around Jackson County and it shows up at events. It's a big ass banana and it's just like you can book it or it'll show up and it just drives people around. It shows up in the summer. That's what I would like to see, is kind of Americana, quirky, cool. What the hell is this stuff? So we got this hearse and I says, well, why don't we sell some tickets and, X amount of dollars, you get a couple swings in the hearse with a sledgehammer. So kind of promoting some Smash Room stuff. And then I can't remember if it was one of the guys from my build team, Michael Green, the collector, or if it was me, but maybe it was just us. We says, let's bring in a monster truck. and let's have everybody bash on this hearse. And then the evening ends with Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, crushing this fucking hearse with a goddamn monster truck. And we were just like, yes, sold. So we've been in contact with the Monster Truck Museum in Butler, Indiana, which is about an hour and a half south of us. Nothing is official. Nothing is set in stone, but we have spoke to them. I've reached out. Green has reached out for me as well. In fact, him and I were talking about that today. We've been fishing around for some more independent monster truck owners closer in the Michigan area. I'm going to do whatever I can to make it happen because I talked with Butch about it. He's all about it. And I just think it's fun. So one of the reasons I'm jumping the gun and talking about this right now is you've heard me talk extensively about Maximum Overdrive. You pretty much know what's going on there. I might have some tricks up my sleeve, but that's about it. The concert is pretty self-explanatory. And then I just go, hey, by the way, we're having Butch. And so I feel like I need to talk a little bit about that. And Butch has came in. Well, actually, Butch and I have been talking for months now, but just trying to line up schedules. So, but as far as an event announcement for him, he's going to come in late in the fold. So I feel like I got to talk about some stuff that's going on there. And that's what I'm aiming for. Monster truck. Boom. Crush. Eddie. Kill.
And then he drives off into the night.
That's probably why the museum was like, they didn't say no, and they weren't like, well, I don't want to, but they were, actually for them, a lot of it was logistics. They were like, do you know how much it costs? Because I guess they'd be traveling 2 states, and for the oversized vehicle charge for towing and all this kind of stuff, they were like, it would, take 3 people and like X amount of dollars just to take off the wheels of the truck so they weren't getting charged for a moving vehicle, oversized vehicle. There's a lot of stuff with the logistics. But maybe that's it. Maybe they just didn't want Butch to just not come back. What are you going to do? Stop him? Eddie Munster will just run you over.
Yeah, he just drives off with your monster truck, never to be seen again until he runs something else over with it.
Right. And I'd be like, sweet, I just inherited Dragula. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. He might tie that to the back of it and drag it along with him.
That makes me think of Rob Zombie and Dragula, where he's just digging through the ditches and burning through the witches and crushing stuff with his monster truck.
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.